The night had fallen heavy across the city, casting long shadows through the cracked sidewalks and neon flickers of corner stores, and Alana Brooks, a 34-year-old nurse who had just dragged herself through a grueling 12-hour hospital shift, was bone-tired, her back aching from bending over patients, her feet swollen from hours of standing, and her spirit drained from holding dying hands and forcing smiles for families. Yet she still carried herself with the quiet dignity she had always worn like armor. She had never been the type to complain, never been the type to think of herself first, and all she wanted on this humid night was to stop at the small grocery on the corner, pick up some vegetables and a loaf of bread, and go home to her husband, where she could finally collapse into the comfort of her living room. But as fate would twist it, her journey was about to become something far darker. For standing by a police cruiser outside the store were two uniformed officers. Officer Daniels, a broad, arrogant man with a jawline like stone and a smirk that never left his face, and his partner, Officer Riley, a lanky, sharp-eyed figure who thrived on cruelty masked as humor, and the moment their eyes fell on Alana, they exchanged the kind of glance predators share when they've spotted prey, not because she had done anything wrong, not because she was suspicious, but because they were bored, because she was a black woman alone at night, because they carried badges that made them feel untouchable, and in their minds, that meant she was fair game. Alana noticed the look but tried to ignore it, walking steadily toward the store, the strap of her work bag digging into her shoulder, her scrubs still carrying faint smells of antiseptic and exhaustion, when Daniels pushed off the cruiser with a swagger, blocking her path with his imposing frame and false politeness dripping venom. "Evening, ma'am, mind telling me what you're doing around here?" And though her chest tightened with unease, Alana steadied her voice and replied, "Just picking up some groceries after work, officer." "Is there a problem?" Riley circled behind her like a wolf testing fences, adding, "Funny, you look nervous. Got something to hide?" And Alana shook her head, irritation rising. "I'm not hiding anything. I'm a nurse at City General. Just got off shift." But Daniels chuckled, tilting his head like a cat playing with a mouse. "We'll see about that. Why don't you step over here and let us check?" And before she could even ask what probable cause they had, Riley seized her wrist, twisting it behind her back, while Daniels clamped on the cuffs with unnecessary force, ignoring her cries of pain as she demanded to know why she was being arrested, ignoring her rights, ignoring the basic humanity in front of them, because for them this wasn't about justice. It was about entertainment, about control, about humiliating someone they thought had no voice. Struggling against the metal that bit into her skin, Alana raised her voice, "I've done nothing wrong. I have every right to be here," but her protests fell only on their mocking laughter as Daniels shoved her toward the cruiser, tossing her inside like a bag of trash, and the slam of the door behind her sounded like the closing of the world itself. In the precinct, the humiliation only deepened. Bright fluorescent lights glared down on her like an interrogation sun, the air cold and sterile, while the two officers paraded her through booking with exaggerated mockery, Riley sneering, "What should we charge her with?" Breathing while black, and Daniels answering with a cruel laugh, "Maybe resisting. Or maybe she just looks too guilty to walk free," their voices ringing out for the other officers in the room who looked on but said nothing, some shifting uncomfortably, others smirking, the silence of complicity suffocating. They shoved her into a chair, left her cuffed, and filled out paperwork with the casualness of people writing grocery lists, then, without explanation, dragged her into a holding cell, tossed her inside, and locked the heavy door, the clang reverberating through her bones. Alana sat on the cold bench, her heart pounding, fear clawing at her chest, but underneath that fear was a slow-burning fire of anger, because this was not the first time she had seen injustice, though never had it cut so personally, never had it wrapped its claws around her life so viciously, and she thought of her husband Marcus, the one man who had always told her that if anything ever went wrong, if anyone ever tried to take her dignity, she should hold her head high, because the truth would always outlive lies. But in this moment she wondered if truth mattered when power was held by men who laughed at their own cruelty. Hours dragged by like years, the flickering bulb above her head buzzing with every second, her wrists sore from the cuffs they hadn't bothered to remove, her body exhausted but her mind whirring with every scenario. What if they fabricated charges? What if she lost her nursing license? What if this stain followed her forever? When suddenly the distant slam of a heavy door echoed through the corridor, followed by footsteps, deliberate, firm, heavy with command, and then a voice, deep and sharp as thunder, tore through the air. What the hell is going on here? The sound froze Daniels and Riley, who had been laughing over their paperwork, froze the other officers in the room, froze the very air, because they recognized it instantly. It was Chief Marcus Brooks, the head of the entire department, the man whose authority stretched through every division, whose reputation for uncompromising justice was feared by the corrupt and respected by the good. And more than that, Marcus Brooks was Alana's husband. He entered the booking area like a storm wrapped in flesh, tall, broad-shouldered, his presence filling every inch of space, his eyes burning with a fury so controlled it was terrifying, and as his gaze locked on his wife sitting humiliated in that cell, the world seemed to tilt. Daniel stammered, trying to find words. "Yes, sir, we didn't know," but Marcus didn't let him finish. He strode past the desk, unlocked the cell himself, and pulled Alana gently into his arms, whispering with steady reassurance, "I've got you, baby," before turning, his voice rising into a command that shook the room. "You arrested my wife. For fun." Silence swallowed the precinct. Every officer present knew they were witnessing the collapse of two men's careers. Riley tried to speak, his voice breaking, "Chief, we were just," but Marcus cut him off with a roar that silenced every word. "You were just what? Abusing your badge? Mocking your oath? You swore to protect, not to terrorize. You swore to uphold the law, not twist it into a game." His words were knives, each one cutting deeper into the smug facades of Daniels and Riley, who now stood pale, trembling, stripped of their arrogance. Marcus's voice dropped lower, colder, deadlier. "She is a citizen. She is a nurse who saves lives every day while you waste yours on cruelty. She is a woman who deserves respect. And she is my wife. And you treated her like trash because you thought you could get away with it. Well, you won't." The weight of those words pressed down on the room like a mountain, and for the first time that night, Alana felt the fire in her chest ease, replaced with the warmth of knowing she was not alone, that justice had walked through the door in the form of her husband. Marcus turned to the supervising sergeant and ordered, "Strip them of their badges. Effective immediately. I'll see them charged by morning." And as the two disgraced officers were led away, faces ashen, their laughter gone, their careers destroyed in a single moment of arrogance, Alana stood taller, the scars of the night still burning but her spirit unbroken, and though Chapter 1 ended with her walking out of that precinct beside her husband, hand in hand, her dignity intact, it was only the beginning of a storm that would shake the city, because power unchecked had finally met the one man who ran the department, and the one woman whose strength had forced the truth into the light.